pleasure to join you. It was beautiful looking at Kansas coming out here. The state is green and the wheat looks great. And let's pray against hail because it looks like a good harvest may be coming. Congratulations to the class that's to be graduating. Thank you, Sterling College, for providing such a great atmosphere for them. I might say as a personal note, Sterling College gave me my launch in politics of sorts. This was the first place I gave a speech outside of southeast Kansas, where I'm from. When I was elected state president of Future Farmers of America, that's when FFA stood for something. FFA doesn't stand for Future Farmers of America now, but it did then. And this was the place where the state Future Homemakers of America were meeting at their state convention. They invited me to speak, and I came here, and that was the first speech I'd ever given. So I have a very fond memory of Sterling. I thought I was really cool then. I had about a 2-inch afro. At K-State, I grew into a 4-inch afro, which I've regretted ever since. My mother always hated that hairdo, and which leads me to my first point to the graduates. And if you forget everything else, this one's just absolutely critical that you remember. This is bar none. I mean, this is a really important piece of advice. Always, always, always listen to your mother. Okay? I'm just hearing mothers applaud or everybody, but that afro has caused me more trouble. There are websites dedicated to it. I'm pro Brownback. It's harmed me politically. If I just listened to my mother, not worn that, I would have been better off. But I wouldn't, and so just always, always listen to your mother. Tomorrow's Mother's Day as well. Good piece of advice. You don't want to forget that one coming up either. Our oldest son was home last weekend. He's getting a doctorate in economics. He was home honoring his mother, and it's just a great thing to do. He did have an interesting economics joke that I don't know if any of you are majoring in economics, but I thought this was real good about the economist. He drives around the countryside, gets completely lost. He sees a farmhouse. He goes up to the farmer and says, "How do I get back to where I need to go?" Farmer gives him detailed directions. The economist's getting ready to leave. He notices the farmer has a lot of sheep. And he says, he's always looking for a way to make a profit. He says, the farmer says, "If I can tell you exactly how many sheep you have in 10 seconds or less, can I take one?" And the farmer looks and says, "There's no way he can count how many sheep I have in less than 10 seconds. He says, "You're on." So the economist puts together a series of analytical formulas in his head and calculates it quickly and says, "You, sir, have 863 sheep. The farmer goes, "That's amazing. That's exactly how many sheep I have." Okay, I guess you can take one. So the economist grabs it, goes to his car, and the farmer says, "Well, hey, I got a challenge for you. If I can say what profession you are, do I get my sheep back?" And the economist thinks there's no way he can know that. And the economist says, "Yes." And the farmer says, "You, sir, are an economist." The economist goes, "Why, yes, I am. How'd you know that?" He says, "Well, it was pretty obvious. You got all the numbers right, but you're walking off with my dog." I love that story. You got a lot going on. I have 2 thoughts, and I will dispense with them quickly. Number 1, you will hear endlessly to follow or pursue your dreams, and it's absolutely accurate. You should do that. What I don't think we spend enough time discussing is why you should follow your dreams. Not that you should, but why? Is this for a personal gain? Is this for some other reason? And there's a great little book on this written by David Wilkerson called The Dream Giver. And in it, he describes a person that's given a dream, and it's a little feather that is laid on his windowsill. And he looks at it, and it represents his dream, and he says, "Okay, I'm going to follow it." And then everybody around him tries to talk him out of following his dream, but he goes ahead and pursues it. And then God's got to form him to be able to accomplish his dream, so he has to go through the desert, he has to face the giants, and finally he has the character to pursue his dreams. He accomplishes his dream, and then he realizes the dream isn't for him. It's for somebody else. He is to do this great thing so that somebody else can prosper and somebody else can benefit. And that's the nature of a truly good dream, is it isn't for you. It's for somebody else. It's so that you become a teacher, so somebody else can learn. You become a doctor so somebody else gets healed. And if you don't become a doctor, which you don't have to put in the effort, you don't have to go through the trials, you don't have to go through the difficulty, you have freedom, you don't have to do that. But if you don't, somebody else gets hurt. If you don't become the minister you're supposed to become, somebody else gets hurt and their soul doesn't grow. The reason for a dream is for somebody else. And that's why you've got to pursue your dream. Now, the title of my speech is Liberty and Responsibility. The point of it is you have complete liberty not to pursue your dream. You don't have to do that. I would submit to you in your heart you have a responsibility to follow your dream. So yes, pursue your dream, but why? For somebody else, so that somebody else can prosper. Second quick thought. That is, for the rest of your life, I hope you continuously develop your mind and your soul. You've had a great set of years here. Some of you have probably done this in 3 years. Some of you are stretching it out on the 5-6 year plan maybe. I did K-State in 5. My oldest daughter did it in 3, and I was going, why? I mean, this is great. I'm having a great time here. But whatever it might be, I hope you never stop forming your mind, continuing to grow your mind, and forming your soul. And you've had a good run here. The problem with these two things is they're different courses. The formation of the mind, learning in the mind, is something you read, you learn from people, you can do this. We've got a pretty set course of action of how you can do this, and lots of opportunities, pretty well set. The formation of the soul is a more difficult and more important thing to do. How you form that heart. And I don't think we put near enough emphasis on it in this country. We put a lot of emphasis on education, and that's critical, and we should. But I don't think we put enough on the formation of the soul and the development of the soul. And how do you do that from this point on forward? I think there's a couple of good routes. One is mentors. Find somebody that you think is really living life well. And then saddle up to them or come beside them and say, you know, look, I really think you're doing a nice job living life. How do you do this? Life is difficult, and each life is different and full of complexities. And Roy Cook was a friend of mine in Washington, D.C. He's passed away. Was one of my mentors. And I would regularly go over to Roy, and I'd just say, Roy, what have you been thinking about? What are you praying about? Because I thought, Roy Cook has figured out how to live life. When I was thinking about whether to run again for the Senate, when I made a term limit pledge to the people of the state of Kansas, I'd serve 2 full terms, and people were saying, yeah, nobody listens to this term limits pledge, don't do that. I mean, you're needed, you're important, I mean, everything that they're puffing you up about. I went over to Roy and I said, Roy, what do you think about me breaking that term limits pledge? He didn't think about it a second. He said, don't do it. When a man breaks his word, it breaks the man. I said, well, Roy was pretty clear about that. And that's what a mentor can do for you. But find them, and you know who they are. And then attach them. And the second is read about people that you really aspire to be like. I've read a lot on William Wilberforce, the man that led the end of the slave trade in Great Britain and sought the reformation of manners, is what he called it in society, as reformation of culture. The guy I've studied. Mother Teresa, I've studied a lot of her writings. Met her towards her last trip abroad. I met her. She had just piercing comments. One of them, I remember her saying that it's hard to love somebody when you're too busy judging them. And I thought, that seems a little personal to me, because I do that all the time. And I remember watching Ted Kennedy walk onto the Senate floor one day while I was presiding. I just looked at him and I thought immediately in my mind, liberal, lefty, I disagree with him. No. I mean, it popped into my head. And then I sat back for just a moment and thought, what did I just do? I just judged him. How am I going to love him if I'm too busy judging him? So I threw that thought out, I repented of it, and Ted and I became good friends and passed a couple of bills together. Passed a pro-life bill together for Down syndrome children. But it never happened had that admonition not taken root by somebody I'd studied. When one time I met Mother Teresa, she died within 6 months later. It was her last trip overseas. She comes into the Capitol, we give her the Congressional Gold Medal. I'm very pleased to host her. She's there for less than an hour. I'm taking her out and putting her in her car at the end of it. She's very frail at this point in time, very short lady that changed the world. Very short, and I'm putting her in the car, and I'm thinking to myself, this will date me this story, but I'm thinking to myself, I caught a great saint on the downhill side. It's a little bit like watching Joe Montana play for the Kansas City Chiefs. If some of you can remember that, I mean, you're going, this guy is fabulous, but he's on the downhill side. The passes aren't as crisp, it's not as quick. You're going, I know this guy was great, but he's just. And I'm thinking that, putting her in the car, saying, great one, but I kind of caught her on the downhill side. Because all she was doing was asking us to pray for her, pray for the sisters. And I was like, well, of course, but I don't know why you want a bunch of politicians praying for you. But she was asking for the most valuable thing I could give her. So I go to put her in the car, and she grabs my hand, stares me in the eye, and says 3 words 4 times. She just grabs my hand, looks at me, she goes, all for Jesus. It's all for Jesus. It's all for Jesus. It's all for Jesus. Door shuts, car rolls away. I just thought, I got the wisdom of a lifetime that had boiled into her life, handed off to me. What a beautiful thought. God bless you all.